Literally, play is their language, play is their connection, play is safety, and play is what helps them to feel good.
Sometimes it's really hard for them to connect with them.
Like if I'm connected enough with my kid, they're going to be honest with me.
Without connection to your kid, you have no influence. What's up, Beliza? How are you?
Good, and you?
I am good. I'm so curious about your name. I've never heard your name before. Is there a meaning behind it?
It's actually, there's a country called Belize, mom being Colombian.
Yeah.
If you actually go to that region, my name's quite popular. So it's
Really?
like a Jessica there or a Jennifer there. But she loved the name. She just changed it. And growing up, I was tortured for my name. And now I love it. But yeah, kids are like, that's not a name. What is that? I'm like, it's my name.
It's the most awesome name. Thank you very much.
Now I love it. I actually asked her to legally change it.
Did you really?
Yeah, when I was like maybe 9 or 10, I was like, Mom, I'm tortured. I just want to be Jessica. And my mom being smart, she said, when you're 16, if you still want to change your name, we'll do it.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, I never did. After that, I was like, I'll figure it out.
Why Jessica?
And embrace it.
Why Jessica of all names?
It was just common. It was very, it was just like a standard boring name. And I wanted to be boring, right? You want to fit in when you're like 9 or 10. You want to be like everybody else. Yeah.
I'm gonna send this clip to my wife real quick.
Yeah.
Her name's Jessica.
Oh, sorry, Jessica.
No, you're good. You know what's so funny though? I've always loved that name. Jessica, for some reason, it just so happened when I met my wife and she told me her name, I was like, oh my gosh, really? And I think it probably I know. Well, I had like this major crush on this girl in like middle school named Jessica, and I think
it all goes back to the childhood.
Right?
Always rooted.
Which is your expertise. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is fascinating to me. You have a story behind this, and you lost your dad at an early age.
Yes.
Are you okay to talk about that and how that's
absolutely.
impacted you today?
Yeah. Well, it's what's brought me to be a child therapist. And
Yeah.
I think it's what helps me to be able to be effective and to really be able to connect to kids. Because I think that when you understand loss, when you've been through your own stuff, you see it in them, but you can also like relate and you can really, really help them. And also it definitely, if you can heal and find the meaning, it can be just really good for you. It can be helpful.
And this sounds like it was really a journey for you. Obviously, did this start because you wanted to heal on your own?
You mean being a therapist?
Yeah, it's like, can I share something with you real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So, the reason I'm doing what I'm doing today, it actually started with me just trying to heal. And then it just sort of like, it just kind of blew up when I started podcasting, and I was just really open about my journey and my healing. But I did it because I wanted to heal in the beginning.
Got it.
Was it the same for you?
No, actually, I think for me, it was more of I've always had a helper in me. I've always been a helper. I've always been a caring, loving, and I think my dad's death kind of brought that out a little bit more. But it wasn't until I got into my private practice and I started realizing I want to work with kids. And well, why do you want to work with little kids? I'm like, well, because that was a time in my life that I think I could have used somebody. Or that was a time of my life where it was really just an important time. And so there's definitely connections there, but I think I made those connections later. And I just wanted to be a helper. I wanted to help and heal. And
Got it. Okay.
Definitely a part of that has been healing myself. Ultimately, yes.
And you also really identify as one of your traits as being a very curious person. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's probably a lot there as well. Isn't there? Probably just maybe wanting to learn about this.
Yes. And just learning about people and learning about why do we do what we do, good, bad, and ugly. And how do we make that better? How do we lean into that? And instead of it being like, oh, something's bad or wrong, well, how can I, what can I do with that? How can that be effective? How can I make the most of that? Learn from that? Yeah.
I'm going to start with like this huge, broad question. And by the way, if you want to correct me with this question, be like, you should probably ask it this way. Why do we do what we do? I've never really understood that myself.
So honestly, there's like 50 different answers.
Okay.
Because everybody has their own human experience, and everybody's going to have their reasons, or life's taught them certain things. So now they're going to make decisions based off of that. So it really is very individual. Although, I feel like look at TikTok and they'll tell you, well, this is exactly why you are the way you are. But it really depends on how you were raised, who influenced you, the decisions you make, who's around you every single day. Because literally that forms you, that helps you make your decisions all the time, even as an adult. People think, oh, I'm an adult, I'm fully formed. Our brain is very malleable. They call it neuroplasticity. So you can learn something new every day. You can change your mind. You can change at any time. But you just have to make that decision and really work on it. So it's a constant change. Change is the constant. But I think sometimes we get very stuck in our ways, and we get very like, no, this is it. And then that's who you become.
Is this the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed? Or are we talking about two different things?
I mean, that's a part of it. That's definitely a part of it. I just want people to know that we think that because the human brain develops by the age of 25 or 26, there's different things that, oh, I'm done. Neurons can still grow. Things can still happen. But a lot of people think that's it. I'm who I am and I can't do anything about that. And then that's not true. So they kind of go together.
What I've never been able to ask anybody this, but why is it you can talk to one person and they'll say, well, that's just the way I am, period. And then you talk to another person and you'd be like, that's the way I am now, but I know I can learn something different. Is that is that choice? Is that perception? What is that?
It's a combination of things.
Okay.
So it's a combination of how well do I know myself, insight, judgment, life experience, and your ability to be open, curious, like we just talked about before, about, well, what are my options here? What's possible or not possible? And it's really exploring who you are, learning your strengths and weaknesses, your limits, all of it, and then, proceeding. But yeah. And yeah.
And then I know I feel like I want to ask like really, really deep questions here, but they're just not coming to mind. And maybe it's because I've never really studied this as in depth as you have.
Yeah.
But maybe can you just give me a little bit more, and maybe I can think of a question that might really spark a deeper conversation. But okay. I think this topic is really valid here. Yeah.
And honestly, we're in such a world where there's so much information out there, which is great, but it can be very overwhelming. And as a therapist, I learn a lot from technology now. Like I see other therapists and I'm like, oh, that's a great way to explain that or whatever. But a lot of it's wrong too, or a lot of it, they take one small piece and then it's like, well, it's more complicated than that. Like it's not just like, one part, there's more to it. But I think that going back to your original question, human beings are amazing. We're complicated. And as a person who has learned to ask myself questions, learn to challenge myself, I used to be this is it, this is life and that's it, which was great. I was able to be successful. But once I started to kind of ask myself, well, why are we doing this? Or is this really helpful? Like we're really stressed out. What are we doing that's keeping us stressed? That exploration has led me to be okay with, not being perfect and, being more aware and being more willing to say, okay, so if we're stressed, perhaps we need to be doing some meditating. Perhaps we need to be working out more. Perhaps we need to be like tuning out all the nonsense that we're hearing a lot, a lot of that BS. And noticing, I love that. I feel better. I'm more in tune. I'm calmer in doing that. So we're going down that path more.
So this is really good. So do you think, okay, I love this, by the way. I'm really, really just trying to think to extract like the best stuff out of here. 'Cause this is so good. People self-sabotage all the time, right? Do you think one of the reasons people self-sabotage is they don't take a pause like that and just say, hang on, time out. Let me step back from this. Let me ask myself a few questions about this, recalibrate, versus the self-sabotager will keep just going down a road of self-destruction. Is that literally as simple as it is, just stopping and asking a good question to yourself?
That's a part of it.
Okay.
And self-sabotage, I'm going to try to, it's funny, I've been going through some of this stuff, is what you feel you deserve. Self-sabotage is what you feel is within your bounds. So we keep doing the things we're doing because it's familiar to us. It's comfortable. Our nervous system knows it.
Certainty.
So it's certain. So I'm going to stick with that, good, bad, or ugly. So I think stopping and pausing and questioning and being aware is very important, but it's one small piece of the big puzzle. Because again, a lot of people, and I've done this myself, I have stopped and paused and still self-sabotaged, right? Because it's like, it almost spiraled too far and I couldn't catch it and off I went. But it can be helpful. It's a practice. Like anything is a muscle, you know, like I think of Britney Spears when she was like younger and she had that beautiful 6-pack ab. And I remember reading something that she did like 1,000 sit-ups a day. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's, outcome. So if I do 50 sit-ups a day, do you think I'm going to look like that? No, it's muscle. You have to build that muscle and repeat to get that washboard stomach.
Yeah.
Same thing with our brain and body. We have to retrain our nervous system for things that are healthy and better. So then we can really get into catching things, be much more aware, knowing already that thing's a self-sabotaging pitfall. And instead of going there, I'm going here.
Wow. So it's kind of like a workout in a way, like you're working out the brain instead of the muscles, right?
Your
Keeping
brain,
that healthy.
your emotions, your nervous system, your body, it's all connected. You can't take your head off from your body. It's all one system. And the more aligned, the more you're able to do life better.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Before we get to fam gab and bringing families together through play, I want to explore this just a little bit more because I think it's so important, especially for the mental health of men out there.
Yes.
The brain is wired to keep us alive, right? Yep. Survival, right?
That's the base of our nervous system. Yes.
Okay. I've always wanted to ask this question. I've never asked this of any expert, and I am so curious to know this. If our brains are so wired to survive, why do we self-sabotage? Because that's like the opposite of that, isn't it?
Our brain keeps us safe. It doesn't know the difference between something that's actually dangerous and something that's not. It, like just earlier when we were talking and someone knocked on my door, my brain, I reacted, I startled because my brain didn't know that was Amazon. It thought danger, 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 and I was already a little nervous about this podcast. So my nervous system was already a little dysregulated. My brain doesn't know. My camera thing wasn't working, so I couldn't look and say, oh, it's Amazon. So our brain doesn't know the difference between whether something's really dangerous or not. It just knows safe, 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 safe. I'm going to keep you safe at every cost.
So let's take a situation like a toxic relationship. Okay. It could be with a significant other. It could be with a parent, whatever it is, right? We stay in that. And let's not talk about the parent thing. Let's talk about a significant other.
Sure.
We stay in that because it's certain, even though we don't like it. Is that the brain saying like, hey, we don't know what's out there, but we know it's here, and we know it's not great, but out there could be worse. So we're just going to stay right here. Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Okay.
In a sense, your body will do what it knows. Your body will do what it knows until it knows better. Just like your brain, like you're going to think, I'm trying to think of a good example. I can't think of one right now, but until we know better, then we can think, oh, okay, there's another option.
So,
we're out there.
I mean, like, could a good example be like, do I want this bag of M&Ms or do I want 2 ounces of blueberries? Like, yeah, I mean, cause like, You know, like our minds be like, dude, those M&Ms look pretty good. And I know what they taste like. Blueberries are boring. But
And it also has, this sugar in it that's going to give you an automatic, kind of like dopamine hit. So,
yeah,
and blueberries, yes, they give you energy, but it's not that same hit.
true. That's
But
so
they're way
true.
better for you. Oh my God, wild blueberries are like a superfood for real.
They are.
And I
Yeah.
can't stand them. And I'm like, force
You
it.
don't like them?
I don't know why. I'd rather have a blackberry. I'd rather have a strawberry, but something about it, they're too tart.
Yeah, if they're not ripe enough, like they're kind of like avocados. You got to get them right when they're perfect. Otherwise, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's sour. Oh, it's mushy.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, fine line.
Okay. So can we talk really briefly about maybe some ways that, like, what are some really good questions? You mentioned a few, but if we're in a situation where you're like, we start to see ourselves self-sabotage, and what's a good question or good questions we can begin to ask ourselves, or maybe even a good practice or two that we could incorporate?
Okay. I can think of two that I say this to myself all the time, and I say this to everybody all the time. Is this helpful or is this hurtful? And that sounds very like whatever, but like if you stop and think about it, your brain and body sometimes know. Is this helpful or is this hurtful? What is this doing for me in the big picture? So big picture, if I can step back a week, 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, what is this doing for me? I'm trying to think of what else.
I love that question, by the way. That's really good.
But,
It's so simple, and I think in those times we need simplicity, don't we?
yes, but again, when you have so much going on, I think sometimes it's really, really hard to stop and focus on that simplicity. I mean, we're in a world where there's just so much going on that until it becomes a practice, it's hard. It's hard to think, oh, it's just that simple. But sometimes it is. Sometimes it really, really is. Another question that I've been asking this of myself a lot as I venture into all this, product development and all this. What would your better self, what would your better self say to you right now? Or is this resonating with your better self? Like the future you, is this going to be a part of this or is this not? Is this helping that future you for you to become her or not? So that's one.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I ask myself and my clients too, like I say, is this the 1.0 version of you or the 2.0?
Yeah.
What would 2.0 say to 1.0 right now?
Yeah.
I love that question. And then what about just maybe one or two practices that you have found maybe helpful for you personally or just people that you've worked with in general? And I know you work with kids mostly, but I know that
A lot of this
mental
stuff
health
is applicable to kids. You just have to tweak it for them.
Okay.
So a lot of it is stillness, like quiet, like mindfulness, like 1 or 2 minutes. Like, and I do this with my kids. We set a timer in the office, and the office is nice and quiet. We have a sound machine inside and outside. Sometimes they'll request music, and I set a timer for 1 or 2 minutes, and we just sit.
What do you do with that? I'll be really honest with
Yeah.
you. I have a horrible time with that.
I know.
And-
I hated it in the
Did you-
beginning. Hated it.
And I think the reason why, I'd love for you to understand, well, first of all, why did you hate it?
Because I'm such a busybody.
Yeah.
I am such
Same.
a doer, goer, mover, a million thoughts and what's next and who's next and what did they say and ooh, squirrel and all of it. And I hated it. And everybody was like, Beliza, you should meditate. Every successful person meditates. And I was like, leave me alone, you therapist. And I'm a therapist. So I would just start with a minute, 2 minutes. And like, sometimes I would play music. Like I would have my essential oils going to really like get into it. And it took months for me to just make it past 2 minutes and to actually feel like that was worth something and it did something for me. But also like, I've had, a lot of high stress and just, I knew that if in order for me to get stuff done, that high stress isn't going to be helpful. So I just found motivators. I was like, well, if we can try this for a little while and we still don't like it, then we stop. But give it a try. Give it a real college try. And then, see. And then slowly but surely, I needed it. Even like
Interesting.
today's Tuesday, yesterday I did 10 minutes. I've gotten up to 12. And I'm like, it's like air. Because literally when we get to be still, when we get to literally hear ourselves, it's magic. It's magic. Like so many, you learn who you are. You learn answers to questions you're asking yourself. Your nervous system is nice and relaxed. When stuff happens, when life happens throughout the day, it's like, okay, I got this. I can figure this out. Versus that reaction of like, oh, I have to do this. I have to do that. No, I've got this because my brain and body are calm enough to manage it.
Man.
So literally a timer. And like, to be honest, even now, there's days where it's easier and days where it's harder. So the days that it's harder, I'm sitting and I'm rocking and I'm kind of thinking of things, but I always try to get back to breathing and try to get back to, okay, what am I looking at? Let's stare at it and just try to breathe and listen to ourselves. Be quiet enough to listen to what do we need? What do we want? What does my best version of me ask of me today? And I know that that's going to help me. Like, I know ultimately that helps me be the better me. So it's worth doing.
So do you, like, when you're in that stillness, do you ask yourself prompts like that?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Especially if like I have a lot going on and I'm like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to figure this out? And so like, you know, I always meditate in the morning. I try to have it be one of the first things I do before I start to get into anything. And sometimes I do, like, especially if like, I know with the FamGam carbs, I was struggling a lot with like, what am I going to ask? Like, who is this for? Like, who are we going to be in developing this product? And literally through the breathing and the meditating, like I got those answers. Wow. You know, am I going to pay for this? And then all of a sudden, like, oh, remember that one account that you haven't touched in like 3 months? It's sitting there. That's exactly what you need for that deposit.
So what do you do when your brain starts to go a little crazy as far as like, cause like I can see myself doing this and be like, oh crap, I forgot to do that one thing.
Yep.
And then I'll get up, stop the whole thing and be like, oh, I
yes,
just didn't get
I've done that. I have to a lot of stopping and saying that if that's important, it won't leave me. When I'm done and that timer goes off, that important thing, I will write it down because it's that important.
Okay.
And that's okay. Absolutely okay. Get back to breath or get back to the thing I'm staring at or get back to my chest or get back to my relaxing. I try to get back to what this is going to help me with. You know, remember that when I finish this, I always feel good. I always feel centered. I always feel ready.
And I think, I mean, the thing that really intrigues me, Beliza, is that it sounds like what this practice does is it just makes you more resilient. You're more responsive, less reactive, correct?
Yep.
Is that because you're calming?
50%.
Is that because you are purposefully and intentionally calming the nervous system?
Yep.
Okay.
And you're purposefully giving yourself room to do nothing in a world that's asking you to do 25 things all the time.
What are you talking about? That never happens.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's literally giving you space to just relax, listen to yourself, and just chill for a minute. Literally.
I love that. Okay.
And just play with it. Literally, I used to be the person like, oh, I can't do it, so it's done. You can do this 55 different ways. There's so many different ways to do it. And sometimes somebody taught me this because I remember I'm a fidgeter. So they were like, get all the wiggles out. Wiggle, move, shake it all out before you go to meditate. And sometimes I do that and I find that helpful, especially when I'm extra tense or extra wiggly or extra like on edge. I'll literally like, and I do this alone because I look crazy. I'm like shaking, I'm like, doing the whole thing, bouncing. And then I'm like, okay, are we ready? Okay, let's sit. Now we're ready to be still.
And do you use music at all or
Sometimes.
sound?
Yeah, sometimes I'll do like, and it's different. Like lately I've been into kind of like American Indian flute music in the background. I love that stuff. So I'll play that. Sometimes it's silence. So again, like the more in tune you are with yourself, the more your brain and body and your soul tell you what you need. Like we're good with silence today. Or we need like the oils today or we need some music today.
Got it. That's really cool.
And start small. Yeah. Like literally I'm like, just do it for 30 seconds. Like set a timer, 30
Yeah.
seconds and be done with it.
I love how you make
Train your brain and body.
I love how you make this really, really digestible and simple. Because I think, especially, I mean, my audience, I'm sure it's like 95% guys. I mean, I know we have a good amount of female listeners too, because I'll get emails or comments or something
Yeah.
that they listen to the show. But men are very, very extreme. You know, we're full throttle or no throttle. We're either going to go to the gym for an hour and a half or we're not at all. We're either going to go 90 miles per hour down the highway or we're not going to pull the car out of the garage. You know, it's like, but starting with like 30 seconds, like anybody can do
Seriously.
that. Yeah.
My whole life is baby steps. I have noticed in my practice when I give, or just in my life, if I can do something in little pieces, before I've known it, before you know it, you've eaten the whole sandwich. It starts with a little baby bite, like
Yeah.
literally baby steps. But again, we're in a world that, like you said, I think the world we're in is very extreme. Like go big or go home, like work hard, play hard. And it's like, that just it doesn't work all the time.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable.
So you don't believe in like, let's not sleep for a week. Let's get all of our work done for the entire year in 1 week.
I'm
Like,
all about balance these days.
Yeah.
All
No, I
about
hear
the
you.
balance. You get older and it's like, listen, I can't run hard like that anymore, and that's okay. How can we get it done?
I love that. I love the simplicity of it because it just doesn't feel like a massive overtaking. It just feels
Yeah.
like, hey, I can do this. I can do this.
And it
So,
already feels like, ew, meditation. Ugh.
yeah.
So how can I make it, desirable and exciting and manageable?
Oh yeah. I love that. Very cool. I want to move over to play-based interactions with our kids. And so your entire, practice is based on, kids. And then, and also play-based interactions, correct?
Yes.
So what first of all, let's just define what is play-based interactions. Is this just us playing a game with our kids or playing toys with them or going outside and
So in the therapy room, because
Okay.
again, like families won't be able to redo everything that we do because of our training and how the therapy room is set up. And there are different types of play therapists, so you just know that off the bat. So it is, and just to rewind, children, anywhere, even like what, 2, even teenagers. You get somebody playing a game, even adults. Think about how many adults, once you get them playing, how childlike we get, right?
so true?
Play is a child's language. And most kids will tell their parents, like, oh, I played with Miss B. I say Miss B or Miss Beliza, whatever is easier for them to say. But play is their language. That is how they share. That is how they process. That is how they express. That is how they learn. So in the therapy room, yes, we're using games. Yes, we're using, I use some play therapy interventions. There's a lot of movement. I have a plethora of tools that we're using that help them process, learn, and feel better. So yes, there's games, I have the typical Uno, but we're not using it like you typically use an Uno game, right? We have Candyland, but you're not using it like you normally do Candyland. So like I'll give you an example. I have this dice and we take turns rolling the dice, but one dice is a movement dice. The other dice is a relaxation dice. So for the movement dice, do 10 jumping jacks. And I always do it with them. Do 5 frog jumps. Stand on one foot for 10 seconds. Now stand on the other foot for as long as you can. And all of that is helping them regulate their nervous system, helping them learn their brain and body, and also helping them feel calm enough to be able to share, the stressors or, the situations and the things that are going on.
What is the correlation between doing that and then suddenly they feel safe to share?
So when your nervous system is calm, when your nervous system feels good, it's easier to learn, and it's also easier to be able to express what's happening in our brain and body. So I feel like regulation, people talk about co-regulation a lot. It's really getting my nervous system online to be able to learn, figure things out, and process the good, the bad, and the ugly of the day.
Got it. Okay.
Or situation, because they usually come with us with a specific situation. Or
I have
stress.
I have an experience with my 8-year-old that it's puzzled me to death. My 8-year-old, especially at bedtime, wants me to tickle him. And I am talking not just like a little tickle. He wants me to tickle him until he's laughing absolutely hysterical. And I ask him all the time, I'm like, how do you like this right before bed? Like, seriously. He's like, I sleep better. I was like, how? Like, if I got tickled before, yeah, what is that?
Some kids need extra stimulation before bed to help them regulate.
Really?
And it's connection with you.
Yeah.
He didn't ask the dog to tickle him or his brother or mom. He asked you.
Yeah.
So that connection is calming. That connection is safe. That connection makes me feel good.
Is that also, do you think when kids ask like that kind of thing, is that their way of like, I need affection, please?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Just like some kids might say, hey, would you read to me? Or some kids would just lay with me. Or a lot of kids will ask questions before bed.
Yeah.
Because they're calm, they're relaxed. It's like a great time to maybe get into a couple of quick things, possibly if it doesn't overstimulate them, in a bad way.
That makes total sense. Like, I'll tell you, like, the best conversations we've always had with the kids. And like my wife, we have 4 boys. We have 18. Yeah. 18, 17, 11, and well, by the time this show releases, 9. So, but I'll tell you, like, our lives are hustle and bustle, but my wife and I joke that bedtime takes an hour, and that's because we usually like to spend like 15 minutes with each kid, and like talk to them, pray with them, ask them questions, just sometimes, like, especially my little guys, I'll just lay next to them and we'll just talk about whatever, and they just love that. But is that because the central nervous system's calm?
It can be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I guess maybe nighttime they could be stressed out, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Or some kids, because it's too quiet and they haven't learned the skills or they haven't learned how to manage that stresses them out. Like they can't, like they're so busy that they're like, oh, I can't sleep. Like, what?
Yeah.
You sleep now? What? And it stresses them out. So I go over sleep hygiene. I go over, the techniques and ways to relax before bed for the kid, the parent, together, sometimes alone. Yeah. So it depends.
From a psychological standpoint, I want to segue off bedtime for just a second. When we want to create connection with our kids and have what I'll say is we want to have a conversation with our kids. Like, we want to talk to them, that kind of thing. What I've noticed is if I do an activity with my kids first, like my older guys, like, it sounds crazy, but if we go to the firing range and we shoot our firearms, or we go to Top Golf, or, we go grab a workout or something like that, like just some sort of activity where we're just not even, we're conversing, but we're not talking on a deep level, but we're doing something. And then we go have a talk, like we maybe go get something to eat, or we go to like the conversations are so much better versus than when we don't do something. There's got to be psychology around that too, right? Is that play for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Just not, like we do a version of that in the therapy room.
Right.
But literally, play is their language, play is their connection, play is safety, and play is what helps them to feel good. And think about it. When I feel good, of course I'm going to want to hang out with you and talk to you. I feel connected. I feel like we're together. Why wouldn't I not want to be with you and answer your questions and talk to you and hang out with you? Because look at us. We're like literally vibing. Versus the opposite. Think of when you don't feel connected, when you don't feel good, when you don't feel like I'm close to you. As a matter of fact, I'm annoyed by you. I'm not going to want to talk to you. I'm not going to want to hang out with you. We're not going to have a good time. It's going to be torture.
It's true. Very true.
Yeah.
And so I think it might be, I don't want to say it's easier to play with little kids, because I think obviously there's a lot of parents who are just like, I don't really want to play. I don't like to play with the little kids. There is that. But like when it comes to teenagers, I know that there's a lot of parents out there that are just like, I just want to engage I just want to do something with them. And sometimes the teenagers, like they're kind of a tough one to crack. I mean, in our house, luckily doing this podcast obviously has served Like it's given us a lot of really good things to do early on. But like with my big guys, like I've noticed not necessarily play, but just doing anything that's like active, like physical, seems to really open them up.
Good.
But is there thing like, so like for instance, a dad with a daughter, like I know a lot of guys out there just like, oh my gosh, I really just want to talk to her. Like, I feel like she wants nothing to do with me. I feel like she's annoyed by me. Like, what do those guys do to connect?
And you were talking specifically teens?
I mean, you know what? Let's do teens and let's also do the little ones too. I know for dads with daughters, it's sometimes really hard for them to connect with them.
I would say in general, ask them.
Okay.
When they're calm, not when it's like a contentious time, or not when we're stressed and we're running out the door. When they're calm and they're good, ask them, like, what would you like to do?
And how do you
If you guys
know when a
choose-
kid's calm? How do you know when they're calm? I mean, there's obvious, but
they're, oh, that's a good question, because I feel like every kid's a little bit different. But if they're willing to talk to you, if they're willing to kind of like, give you that attention, if they're not being snippy or short, and I think of teens just because of the hormones, and like they can be a little bit intense. And sometimes you have to ask them, like, hey, is this a good time? Hey, I wanted to chat about like some stuff. Is this good? I think sometimes we forget to like ask kids and teens like permission in a way, or like, hey, are we good here? Like, I wanted to chat about something, or engaging them and giving them a choice. I think we get used to, as parents, caregivers, love, if we're in charge, we're used to giving commands and dictating. And sometimes like when they have a choice, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a human being. I do have an opinion. So giving them a choice and asking them, hey, is now a good time?
yeah.
And they might say yes or no. Like, again, you're kind of like throwing it out there, and you're like, because if they say no, be like, okay, I'm going to come back in a few minutes, or can you come and get me? Because there's something really fun I want to talk to you about, or there's really something important, I want to, check in with you about.
So when we ask kids, is now a good time to talk, right? I can't imagine, like I would, the story I'm telling myself is probably like 95% of the time, the kid will be like, sure, even if they don't want to.
Yeah.
And so do you think it's more important for us to maybe give them that choice instead of just asking them if now's a good time to talk? Because like if a kid were to say, now is not a good time to talk, because then they might be like, if I say that to my dad or mom, like they might get upset with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I think that goes back to connection. Like, if I'm connected enough with my kid,
Right.
they're going to be honest with me. But if, let's say we don't have that, we kind of have to build that first.
Right.
We have to build that, and we have to be okay with how that's going to go, because it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be messy. We're human beings. Like, this is just how it goes. And I would say, like, be willing to like get an answer you're not going to want to get, and be willing to mess it up, because it's going to, again, there's no parenting manual. There's no one way to do this. Every child's unique. Every parent's unique. We all have our stuff that we're bringing to the table. How can I do this to the best of my ability to connect with my kid? And for them to know that, like, hey, I'm trying here. Hey, this is important to me. You're important to me.
I think it's so important. And I really I would love for you, from your perspective, like all these kids that you help, right? And like probably a lot about their family life and that kind of thing. And I think a lot of parents want to wear the hat of, I'm the parent, I'm the disciplinarian, I teach you right from wrong.
Yeah.
And there's one quote that we say in the Dad Edge community all the time, and that is, without connection to your kids, you have no influence. Mm-hmm. So like you can be the disciplinarian or whatever you want to be, but if you really don't formulate that connection,
Yep.
they're probably not going to want a whole lot to do with you. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
And I love that this is coming out in the community more. It's love and discipline.
Yeah.
So I will never say it has to be one or the other. It's both together. So, when I love you and when we're connected, I'm going to listen. I'm going to want to work with you as a team. Not every single time, because again, we're humans, we're growing and developing. But that's going to help us to work this out and to problem solve together. But yeah, they go together. I teach all of my families love and discipline. They go hand in hand. You need both, especially because you are the parent. You are responsible for helping this little person grow into a human being.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I find the most success with both. With both.
And I know that there's not a one size fits all, and there's probably not even a formula in some way, shape, or form, or maybe there is, but it's like every situation is different, every dynamic is different, and I think one of the crossroads or the fork in the road that a lot of parents get to with their kids in certain situations is like, okay, what lever needs to be pulled here? Is it connection and love, or is it discipline?
Yeah.
Like, and when do we know that, or is it just so dynamic and fluid? It's just, you have to make that choice in the moment.
You're going to learn that through a lot of mistakes. You're going to learn, try lever one, and you're like, oh crap, lever two. So really it's a lot of trial and error, and really you have to keep trying.
Yeah.
You have to keep trying. And it's a lot of effort and it's a lot of work. But ultimately, and I say this to a lot of parents, when your child becomes an adult and they get to choose whether or not they want to answer your call or whether or not they want to hang out with you, how do you want that to go?
Yeah.
Do you want them to come home for the holidays, or do you want them to come up with 50 excuses why they don't want to see you?
You watch this,
but that's a part of it.
it is. You watch the show Yellowstone by chance?
Oh my God, it ended.
Well, I haven't seen the last few episodes of season 5 yet, so don't tell me yet.
I didn't tell you anything.
But so my wife and I have watched all the way up until the where they basically were just like, okay, we're going to do part 2 of season 5 now. So I haven't seen anything since November yet. But my 18-year-old and he is really taking a liking. We just started season 1 together, so he and I are watching it. He just loves it.
Nice.
But I'll tell you, rewatching it, there's so many adult children dynamics and all those things going on. And there's this one, I'm getting the chills just talking about it. There's this one part in episode 1 where Kevin Costner, John Dutton, goes to Casey Dutton, and they have a very strained relationship, as you can tell, right? He doesn't really see his grandson too often. He doesn't really see Casey too often, and he kind of walks away after a really tough conversation, just asking, Casey, can I please see my grandson? And he's like, I'll think about it. And Kevin Costner walks away, and he looks back at his son, and he goes, Casey, let me tell you something. One of these days, your son is going to make a decision, and it's going to be how much is he going to let you in on his life, and how much he isn't going to. And that's a choice he's going to make, and that's a choice you're making right now. And the consequences of making a wrong decision is exactly what's going on right now. And that is such, I think, for a father to watch that part, where you've raised a kid and you've done the best you possibly can, and now your kid is just like, I don't really want I don't want to be around you. And I think that this combination of love, connection, discipline, it just needs to be there, right? But I think one of the biggest missing things, though, Beliza, is we're just winging it. We don't know. Are there other resources in your practice that you've recommended that you're just like, hey, if you want to really refine these skills, go do this? What are they?
I'm going to go anything by Dr. Dan Siegel.
Okay.
He has a ton of old YouTube videos, but they're clipped for you. He has a book, oh my God, The Whole Brain Child, which is amazing. Very easy to digest. It even has a comic book strip for scenarios for parents. I love that book. Anything by Dr. Dan Siegel, I'm obsessed with him. Huh. And again, and I'll make suggestions, but he's one of my go-tos. I like Conscious Discipline, and I forget her name. She's fantastic. Again, there's a lot of clips from her events. There's
Rebecca Bailey for Conscious Discipline.
Yes, Dr. Bailey, excuse me.
Okay.
And then Good Inside by, oh my God, I'm messing her up. She has a book that's my next read. Good Inside, Dr. Becky.
Yeah, Dr. Becky Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. She's amazing.
I got
I
you.
like those three.
Okay.
I also like the Child Mind Institute. I think .org. They're based out in Canada.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with them. I actually just did a training on anxiety a few weeks ago with them online. They have a lot of good gems, videos, articles, webinars. Obsessed with them.
That is tremendous. I did not know any of those. And I'm so glad we'll put those in the show notes for you guys. So Conscious Discipline, Dan Siegel, Good Inside by Becky Kennedy.
Yep.
Very good stuff. I'm going to pick these books up
And this is where
myself.
technology is amazing because I literally save videos and send them to my parents later. You can find clips, you can find segments. So it's not like you have to sit there for an hour or 30 minutes. Some of these things are 2 minutes long and it's like perfect for a parent who's busy, right? There's a lot going on.
That is so cool. Gold, absolute gold. Thank you for this.
Oh yeah.
Let's move over to questions, right? I had a video. This was about, I think, a year and a half ago. It was my first video that ever went viral, and I was on somebody else's podcast.
Nice.
And so I was on this other podcast with Ryan Alford, and the day that we did the podcast, I was in a very fiery mood, and it was because it was devastating. Unfortunately, my very best friend, and also one of my partners within the Dad Edge, he helps me run our boardroom mastermind for business owners. His daughter was killed in a car accident. She was 19, and I had to record the next day, and trying to console my friend on the darkest day of his entire life, and helping him walk through that. And then I got on this podcast the next day, and I was just like, I think I was just spent. My nervous system was spiked probably. But basically, what I did on that, I'm a huge fan of high quality questions to get depth and connection with your kids and your spouse as well. But this guy, he's like, "What do you think is the one mistake that parents make?" I said, "I think one of the simplest things you can do, one of the biggest mistakes is parents ask really shitty questions like, 'How was your day?' Like that's not going to get you in." And I just went on a tirade. I was in a mood, and then he posted that. He got like 3 million hits. And,
wow.
but the questions I would love for you to share. Why do we need better questions than that? And why do we ask these really ridiculous default questions that don't get us anywhere?
If we knew better, we'd do better. I genuinely believe that. I think that sometimes we don't know, so we just grab in our bag and we take whatever's there. And it's just such it's like one of the most common things people ask all the time. So we do what we know. And if we don't know better, we're just repeating the same stuff over and over and over again. So I think that it's just so easy, especially if we don't know, we're just grabbing at straws. Which is part of why I have the card. So that way, maybe you have a couple memorized, or again, you can just spit them out and just use them. But yeah, it's really easy just to kind of I don't know. And plus, if you're stressed out, you're just kind of what good things come out when you're frazzled.
True.
Yeah. Hello. So yeah, parents have to be ready and willing and kind of open to okay, that doesn't work. So, what can we ask? What can we try here? How creative can we get here? And just again, being willing to fail and being willing to try.
I've also noticed too, is that, these questions, they're like pattern interrupts. Somebody could just kind of be like, you're sitting next to somebody, you're sitting next to your kid in the car, and how was your day? Boring. Okay, great. Mm-hmm. But if you ask I was like, tell me something that you laughed at today. And then suddenly they're like, oh, it'll turn into a conversation and a story.
Yeah.
But these questions, they kind of tend to stop the kids in their tracks almost.
Well, they're closed questions.
Right.
They're meant to be short or no or yes.
Yeah.
All of my questions are open-ended questions. They're meant to get you saying more than one or two words. And that's the thing. It's most of the time we're asking yes or no questions. Mm-hmm. And it's no, you need to think of open-ended, what's going to make them think. or what's going to make them like explore beyond the, I don't know, I'm okay, it was fine, you know.
I want to ask you a psychological question about open-ended questions. So I have heard and researched a little bit that the word why can be kind of triggering, right? So like, and psychologically, like, people, we just don't like, why did you do that? Why did you send that email? Why did you make that phone call? Do we want to stay away from the why questions when we're asking our kids open-ended questions? Or, and I also really am curious, what is the psychological reason behind why we don't like the why?
Every question you asked made me get defensive. Every why question you just add automatically put me on a defense.
Why is that?
Yeah. And I think like, even if you were like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
In that, I felt like I look creepy saying that. So, but it automatically makes that person defensive. It automatically puts me on edge.
But I guess like the human brain, tell me about that. Like, was there something that happened to us like in prehistoric ages where we somewhere that someone wrote the word why on a cave wall and like, oh, we don't like that?
So not that I'm aware of. I just know that it's you get defensive. Just like when we do the opposite, when we blame, like you did this or you made me feel like that. It's a blaming, it's a negative. There's a negative relationship to that. There's a negative connotation with that automatically makes me be defensive and everything goes up. And I'm just going to lean away from you.
If we want to know why, is it better to say, oh, tell me more about that?
Yes and no, because again, like depending on the kid, they might just get creeped out and shut down even more.
Really?
Like, like, what are you talking about? Like, who talks like that? Like, you don't talk like that. So again, it's how we say it. So, and so instead of the, why did you do that? I'm trying to think like what other choices were there or what was going on that led you there? And it has to be curious. You have to be very like open to really wanting to know that answer. Because again, kids and teens, they're smart. They can sniff you out. They're like, what do you want? Like,
what are you trying to do?
They're smart.
Yeah.
So you have to just be really genuine and open and curious and be like, like, what else would have worked? Or what else could you have done that would have been different? And just exploring it from just a different place than the typical, like, why would you do that? Or like, why did you say that? Or like, well, it's just so natural. It's too natural.
That makes total sense. So these fam gap cards, would you mind just maybe giving us a sample of maybe like two or three questions?
I would love my favorites for you.
Sweet.
And it's funny because I usually do general, but you said you like the deep questions, not the shitty questions. This is good. So, who is with you when you are happy?
Oh.
And I don't have this in here, but my automatic thought would be the opposite. So who is with you when you're frustrated? Or who is with you when you're like, insert feeling. That's a good one. Or what do you think makes a family close?
Wow, that's
that
really
one's a little
good.
general, but I mean, people
that's
can go.
So good.
And some of the questions are just for the kids. Some of the questions, both the parent or adult and child answer. And there's 5 bonus questions just for parents to do on their own.
That is so cool.
Another one, let's see. What's something that makes your home feel special?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question.
I'm so do the opposite. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm so curious. Like, I'm sure you probably have asked some of these questions, like in practice. Like, what do kids say?
I'll think of one. Ooh, I feel like I ask this one all the time. So with the who is with you when you're happy? Oh my God, kids are like, oh, my dog. Or, usually like, sometimes my sister when she's not on my nerves, or like my best friend. I mean, you'll get the full range of answers from them. You'll get the full range. And sometimes they're like, yeah, you. Last Saturday, remember when we went for that bike ride? Like, that was so happy. I was so happy. And you're like, that was like a 7-minute bike ride because we were rushing, but it was connection time.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised what they find to be, happy time sometimes. We think it's the full day at Disney. No, it was when you dropped the churro and like I was giggling at you.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that question. That's so good. Hey guys in the audience, you're welcome. Beliza, thank you for that question. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
you're welcome. Yeah.
You know, we got a gift from my brother-in-law, as a family. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what this game is called, but it was so fun. All four of my boys are pretty open, but I would say the one who's the quietest is my 17-year-old. So like he's kind of like this tough nut to crack, but once you get him open, he'll open. So anyway, this game I think it's called How Well Do I Know You or something like that. But it's a series of cards and questions, and it comes with a pad of paper, and there's like exercises, like fun things, like draw a self portrait of each other, like that kind of thing. But it was just such a cool way of getting to know. Sorry, my dog. It's just such a great way to get to know like the kids, which is awesome. But this has been super helpful. What haven't we talked about?
I actually took some notes, so hold on. Oh, okay. A big one that if I can tell any dad out there, because again, we're in a world that tells you, oh, you know, you got to take your kid to Disney. You know, everything has to be big. It really is quantity over quality over quantity. So 5 minutes of you and me time can go a lot further than like a full day at Disney. Because a lot of times I'm not even paying attention. I'm like, you know, in here, I'm thinking about this or thinking about that. If I can be zoned in with you for literally 10 minutes of you time, that's going to make the world of difference versus, oh, I have to do this big, huge thing with them. Again, the baby steps. It is quality over quantity. Please remember that. Because think about your childhood. What do we remember? We remember the most random moments from our childhood. Our kids are the same. Is the big stuff these days? Sure, it's great. But what will they remember? The randomness and how you made them feel.
That makes so much sense. Maybe you can help me psychologically unpack something that not only we've experienced, but other parents has as well. So we went to Disney for the first time as a family back at the end of 2020. And, you know, Jim Gaffigan, one of my favorite comedians, like he has a joke about Disney. It's like, I hope you enjoyed yourself. Because it's either this or send you to college because it's like crazy expensive, right?
Seriously.
So like parents want to bring their kids to Disney. We did like all these crazy parks. We did like every ride, all this other stuff. And we're on the plane ride home. And we stayed at one of the Disney resorts. And we kind of did this thing where we would do, you know, a park one day and then a park the next day and then take a break and just chill at the hotel. And then we do a park and then, you know, kind of work in some breaks.
Nice.
And we asked the kids, we're like, all right, guys, what was your favorite part of the trip? What do you think they said?
What did they say? The break times? Whatever we were hanging?
It was the pool at the hotel
Pool.
where we were playing.
Yeah.
And I was like, my wife and I were like, what? Like, and they were like, yeah, the pool at the hotel. Like we played ball there. You know, we swam around. We did the chicken fight. You know, and then we're like, we could have done that at home. Mm-hmm. You know.
Yeah.
But that's what we heard, and I think a lot of it probably we were all connected. We were all playing together. You know, versus like we're experiencing this park together, but we're interacting here. Maybe that was it.
You're literally like it's really you me time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so good.
Yeah.
Well, Beliza, you know, just as we wrap up here, so you have your cards that you have. This is great, by the way. Such a great resource for parents out there. But just if anybody wants to connect with you, your resources, how do people work with you? Like, I know you obviously work only with kids.
Yeah.
Do you work with them virtually too, or just?
A lot of my parents, they're really busy, so we end up doing a lot of virtual sessions. But the kids usually come into the office for, you know, IRL.
IRL?
I'm sorry, in real time? I'm sorry, IRT.
Oh.
Or IRL, in real life? I don't know.
In real life.
Yeah. One of those. Pick one. Yeah.
We live in this virtual world all the time. So, yeah. Very good. So, and where can they find you, you said?
So they can find me, I'm trying to think of the best way for them to connect with me. So they can use my work email. So it's Beliza at myoviedocounselor.com. And then the cards are the famgams.com. And it's up. I'm still doing tweaks to it. And yeah, if they want to pre-order, they could do it on there, but they could reach out to me on there too.
You said Fam Gams?
I'm sorry, famgabs.
Famgabs.com. Okay,
Yes.
got it. I just want to make sure we have that right for the guys.
Yes,
Go grab it.
famgabs.com.
Okay, we'll have that in the show notes as well for you guys.
Yeah, I'm taking pre-orders right now as I prepare to launch it.
That's so cool. I mean, I can only imagine like the conversations that will come out of this. So
I genuinely hope that this is a tool that can really foster connection. We're in such a connectionless world that it would be so cool to have a family come up to me like, oh my God, like my kid won't stop talking.
yeah,
I'll be like, yes, yes.
But you want to hear something really funny though?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's funny or if it's kind of like, it pissed me off, but like, so like when that video that I was talking about went viral and, you know, we listed the other questions, like, you know, tell me about the best part of your day. Tell me about something challenging. How'd you get through it? Like that kind of thing. We literally had people, and the Instagram is the wild, wild west. I think people just comment, obviously, just because they're just like, you know what? I just want to throw a rotten tomato at this. Because they can. You know, people online will say things that they'll never tell you in person. But this, I'll never forget seeing these comments. And this one dude was like, if I ask questions like that, my kid will never shut up, and that's annoying. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Like I feel sorry for your kid, bro.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And in 10 years, they're going to wish that their kid would be blabbing their ear off.
Right.
Depending on how old they are. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know, man. I mean, like my kids, like I said, like I have an adult kid now, you know, legally. And the more he talks to me, I'm just like, dude, I have big ears. So like, I'll just listen. Yep. I just want to listen.
Yep.
But very good. Hey, guys, we'll have all the links in the show notes for you. You won't have to look far. All you have to do is head on over to this show, which is thedadedge.com/515. Again, thedadedge.com/515 for this show. Beliza, thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you for coming on. And I love the first half of this show too, like unpacking self-sabotage and regulating our nervous system. And I've always just wondered, like, why do we do the things we do? But you've explained it perfectly, so thank you.
And if you have more questions, reach out. I'd love to help. I love to help any parent, any person wanting to figure it out.
Love that.
That's where it's at. Right
yeah.
there.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
All right.